Welcome to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with your host, motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Be sure to check out Greg at www.gregdwyer.com. That's www.gregdwyer.com. Now on to our show. Take it away, Greg.
Hi everyone, it's Greg Dwyer. I can't believe it's February already. So how are you doing on those New Year's Eve resolutions? So 80% of people that thought about New Year's Eve resolutions back in December are probably not thinking about them anymore. How about you? Did you set a resolution? Did you have an intention to have this year, 2023, different, better than last year? Did you write it down? Did you think about it? Are you on track? So we're going to talk a little bit about mindset today, and the reason I came up with this is because many years ago I was in Ireland and I was by myself and I had to get to a certain place. I don't remember if I was going to the hotel or coming back from the hotel, and I met a few people on the bus. I was actually taking a bus at the time, and I asked somebody, which stop do I get off so that I can walk down the street and I was going to the hotel. And this woman said, no, it's not this one. You got to wait two more, and then you got to get off the bus and then walk about a few blocks to the hotel. Don't remember the name of the hotel. Beautiful place that I stayed. Had a wonderful time. And she got up the next stop to get off the bus, and she gave me the instructions of when to get off the bus, which was going to happen momentarily after she got off the bus. And then when she got off the bus, as she's walking down the stairs, I'll never forget this. I've never heard this from somebody. She said these words. Are you ready? She said, mind yourself. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Mind yourself, you know. And it just kind of stuck with me. In other words, she said, you know, don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. There's going to be a couple stops, and then you got to make sure you get to your stop and then get off the bus. And mind yourself, because I'm not going to be here for you. You know, it's funny how someone will say something and it just sticks. Well, that really stuck for me. So we're going to talk about mentality. We're going to talk about mind yourself. Now, last week we talked about the concept of the diamond. Today we're going to talk about the mind. So you put them together, Diamond Mind. The name of my company is called Diamond Mind Potential. So last week I mentioned the word diamond, D-I-A-M-O-N-D. And I talked about the fact that the D stands for you have to decide. You have to really get clear what's important to you. Health or relationships or finances or your career. It's really about getting clear about what's important. Like a diamond, you know, hopefully a diamond is clear, right? So deciding what's important and then aim your mind towards that outcome into a new direction. And that's what we talked about last week, which was the diamond. Today we're going to talk about the mind, M-I-N-D. Now, I made a little bit of a distinction between these two words, diamond and mind. And if you think of two triangles, one pointing upward and the other one pointing downward, and you put them together, you have a diamond. The first word, diamond, is very focused on going in a certain direction. So the image of this is the triangle facing upward. You know, it's this idea of moving forward. It has a lot of masculine energy behind it. It's like, okay, I'm going to go from point A to point B, you know, and it's about force. It's about willpower. It's deciding what's important. It's aiming the mind. It's the outcome, and it's the new direction. So if you're going south, you turn around, you go north, or if you're going east, you go west. So the image is the triangle facing upward. A lot of times when I do my lecture, the importance of focus, people will say to me, why do you have a triangle around your neck, or why do you have a triangle on the card that I pass out? And I say, well, because it's a direction, but it's also focused on one point. And, you know, you think of a triangle at the top, there's only one point to it. There's not 3 facets or 4 facets or 10 facets. There's just one point to this. And I always remind people that when you come into the lecture, think about one thing that you want to improve. You want to improve your health. Is that something that's really important to you? Or relationships, or currency, money, career? You know, what is it that really is important to you? And focus on that one thing rather than 5 things or 10 things or 15 things. So just to recap, think of a triangle pointing in one direction to the top, faced upward. Decide, important, aim, mind, outcome, new direction. Now, today we're going to talk about mind, M-I-N-D. Think of a triangle upside down. Now, this has more of a feminine energy to it, and I'll explain at the end what I mean by that. But if you put these two triangles together, you have a diamond. So the first letter is M, and obviously we're going to be focusing on the mind, so I chose the word mentality. Have you ever met somebody, doesn't matter what's going on in their life, they always see the glass half empty. You know, they're just like, okay, they won a lottery ticket, they got $100, but they got to pay taxes, and they're really upset about that. Or they got some good news, but they're able to pull out the bad news all the time. Like their mindset, their mentality is wired towards negativity. You know, they could see a sunset, and they complain that it didn't last long enough, you know, or they're seeing a sunrise and it didn't last long enough, or whatever. So their mentality is always to see the negative, always to see what's wrong. And, you know, people are wired towards certain patterns, and you can understand that. People who study this, and I say this in my lecture, 45 to 65,000 thoughts that we have every day, the next day, like 90% of them are the same. So we're living this, you know, this Groundhog Day phenomenon. February 2nd, just a few days ago, Groundhog Day, I watched the movie. It's a funny movie, but it's also sad because most of us are just kind of repeating patterns, and a lot of these patterns go back to childhood. You know, something happens in our 50s and our 60s and 70s and 80s, and we get this emotional reaction, and it goes back to something that happened to us when we were 5 or 10 years old. So mentality has to do with our attitude of our mind or our way of thinking. Now, one of the best ways to change this, there's a few, but one of the best ways to change this is to surround yourself with people who think differently than you, or how you want to think, I should say. A lot of times we talk about in the personal growth movement about having a mastermind group of like-minded people. Well, if you're really negative and you're a Debbie Downer and you see everything going wrong, they might not even invite you to the group. But getting around people that are very positive thinking, they're focused on what's good in the world rather than what's bad in the world, these are the people you want to associate with. They're going to sharpen you. It's like iron sharpens iron. So your circle of influence, who you hang around with, who you spend time with, is who you're going to become. So if you hang around with your family and friends and people that you know, and they're, you know, the sky is falling, it's the end of the world, and we're probably not going to make it past, you know, 2025, and it's going to be World War III, and come on over, let's watch the news, and, you know, you're going to realize that that is going to impact you. So one of the ways to change that is to get around different people who think the way you want to think or differently, mentality. The other one is simply to train your mind by creating new habits. Now, I have a deck of cards called the Focus Deck. They're in prototype right now. I don't sell them, but about a year ago, I produced a deck of cards, 52, every single suit, every card's different. But on the cards, they have affirmations, and I've memorized every one of them. I won't bore you with it, but the first one is say positive, think successful. That's a great one. I love that. The second one is the only rule in life is to love yourself. The next one is no fears, no limits. The next one is imagination is the first step towards reality. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a few seconds. So every day, Monday through Friday, I look at these cards. I either look at them or I recite them every morning, Monday through Friday. Why do I do it? I want to rehearse these positive intentions in my mind. I can and I will is another one. These are all positive. If you believe it, you can make it, right? I know it sounds crazy, but I made a connection a few years ago that if it's true, just humor me for a moment, if it's true we have 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day, and most of them, 90%, are the same, and about 50% of what we think, say, and do is habitual, right, coming from the movie The Groundhog Day, wouldn't it make sense to just train our mind in a different direction? So that's the reason why I came up with the deck called the Focus Deck, this idea that we're constantly thinking of these things. And it's not that you can do it once and be done. I do this every day, Monday through Friday. Sometimes when I stop at a red light, I'll got nothing going on, and I'll just go through the cards in my mind. You can build anything you want, There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Just walk towards it. Sometimes you're having a bad day and something's happening and you get triggered, and wow, these affirmations are just there. Maybe not in the moment, but maybe in a few moments after that, you just say, hey, there's got to be an answer here. Oh, I know what the answer is. The answer is believe it, and you can make it. These are all affirmations. You don't have to buy my deck when it's ready. You can make your own. You can find some affirmations that you absolutely love. And here's what I would encourage you to do is, if you definitely want to change your mentality, be aware of the people you hang around with. Understand that birds of a feather flock together, and if you lie down with dogs, you're going to get fleas, and you're going to pick up the mindset and the mentality of the people you know. It's like if you were to watch the news every day, you're gonna pick that up, and your friends and your family are also going to influence you as well. Attitude and way of thinking. It goes back to me sitting down on that bus and seeing that woman get off the bus and saying, mind yourself. Like, in other words, you're responsible. Pay attention. Pay attention to your thinking. Pay attention to your attitude. Pay attention to not just what you think, but how you think. And that gets me to the next point. So once we get past mentality, the next letter is I, which is imagination. And one of the cards is all about imagination, that imagination is the first step towards reality. I think it was Einstein that said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Imagination. The reason why the triangle is facing down is because it's receiving information. The diamond above, or the triangle above facing upward, is really about masculine energy as far as like making something happen. It's really about the force of the will. The triangle facing down is about receiving information. And so this is imagination. It's how you think about something. And under this imagination, there are three modes that I want to share with you. One is visual, the other one is feeling or kinesthetic, and the other one is auditory. So think of something, you can think of anything, a memory or a thought that you're having. You can change it just by using your imagination. You can alter it just by your imagination. You can think of something that happened yesterday, or think of something that happened today, early on. And as you're thinking about it, you can change it with how you visualize it, whether it's far away or it's close to you, or it's black and white, or whether it's colorful. These are ways to change your memory using your imagination. If someone came to your house and knocked on the door and said, hey, I have a package for you, you could imagine that the person had a Mickey Mouse nose. You can just imagine that. Not that it happened, but you could imagine that. The K, or kinesthetic or feeling, is, how does that make you feel? Or does it make you feel happy? Does it make you feel sad? Does it feel heavy? You can change the way you think about your life or what happens to you based on how you use your imagination in this area. And then lastly is auditory. It's like how you hear it or how you take it in. Are you saying it to yourself? Or are you hearing it externally or internally? All of this can change the way you imagine your life. Now, the good thing is, or the most exciting thing is, you can do this for future things. You talk to anybody who's done anything really special, like an athlete or maybe a comedian that went on the Tonight Show in the day. They would imagine that they already did it, whether it's winning the race or getting on television or getting that lottery ticket and getting $100 or $1,000 or whatever it is. It all begins in the imagination. Don't ask me how it works, but I've listened to a lot of people talk about this, and I've also seen it in my own life, that using your imagination in advance can help you get closer and closer to what you want. You see it, you feel it, and you hear it. So maybe what you do is you write it down. I remember years ago, now here's some imagination for you. I remember years ago, I wrote down that I wanted to go to Fiji. I wanted to go to Rome. I wanted to go to Italy. I wanted to go to Ireland. I wanted to go to Germany. I wanted to go all the way through Europe. And I didn't have the money at the time. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the time. It seemed like an impossible dream, an impossible goal. But I still have the papers. I still have the papers upstairs in my office. I imagined by writing it down, by feeling it, by saying it to myself and visualizing that, I can't wait. Someday I'm going to go to Italy. Someday I'm going to stand in front of St. Peter's Basilica. And I'll tell you, folks, I'll never forget. I'll never forget the day our guide, her name was Deborah, she said to us after dinner, hey, would you like to jump on the bus? I'll give you a tour of Rome at night, and we'll go see St. Peter's. And I'm like, yep, get me on that bus. And I got on that bus, and I still remember, about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, getting off that bus, standing at the foot of the steps of the bus and looking at St. Peter's Basilica and just thinking to myself, this is amazing. It all begins with visualization. It's imagination. I'm sure you've heard the story before about Walt Disney. This is a famous story. I think it had to do with Epcot. But Walt Disney was dead by this time, and one of the reporters was talking to the brother of Walt Disney and saying, isn't it kind of unfortunate that Walt didn't see this? Like, this park is, all in operation right now, but Walt never saw it. He passed away. And Walt's brother said, listen, if he didn't see it, you wouldn't have seen it. Now that's profound. So people who know how to use their mind, the mentality, of understanding that they can project using their imagination for what they want. The reason why it's wonderful is because most people do this in reverse. They do it to worry. They imagine the worst that's going to happen. And in some cases it does happen, but they're using their imagination in a negative way. Like, oh my God, what if I can't pay the bills? And what if the electric bill is going up too high? And what if I hit that deer? And what if I lose my job? And what if my husband leaves me or my wife leaves? So they're using their imagination to worry in advance. What I'm suggesting is use your imagination for what you want. So what I want right now is to take a break. We'll be back in 34 seconds.
You've been listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Do you wish you could sharpen your focus on what matters most to you and achieve more? Then you owe it to yourself to read Greg's ebook at gregdwyerebook.com. That's www.gregdwyerebook.com. Download it today and give it away. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Now back to our show. Take it away, Greg.
All right, we're talking about minding yourself. Lady said to me in Ireland, it was in Dublin, mind yourself. And by the way, here's a little bit of a commercial. We're going back to Ireland. I don't think there's any more seats left, but if you have an interest, maybe, just maybe, if you do the right imagination, we can get you on the trip. So right now we're sold out, but you never know. So send me an email at greg@gregdwyer.com. We also have a trip to Israel, the Holy Land, in December. If you have an interest in that, let me know as well. greg@gregdwyer.com. So getting back to our topic, we're talking about diamond mind. So the diamond, the top of it is a triangle pointing up towards the top of the paper. And that really has to do with masculine energy, making something happen. When we're looking at the mind, it is a triangle facing down. It is receiving, it's receiving information. And what I mean by that is it's not about doing as much as just being and receiving. So one of the practices that I do, and I've been doing this for years, is every morning when I wake up, one of the first things I do is I get really quiet and I focus on what's important to me. Not looking at the email, not looking at the Facebook, not checking my messages, not saying to myself, what do I have to do today, right? Rather, I just simply sit quietly for a few minutes. And, I started with 5 minutes. I'm up to about 15 every day. And just receive, using my imagination, what I should be doing today. And then I spend some time planning on paper exactly what I should be doing. But, you know, it's this understanding that it's not about doing so much as it's about meditation or receiving or just simply sitting quietly. So the last thing we talked about is imagination. The next one is new, which is the letter N, as in the word new. Now this appears in the diamond, but it also appears in the mind. I think what stops most people is fear of something new. Like, we all want something new. We all want to have the new whatever. But I do think that it does scare people. And the reason why is because it's outside of those 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day. It's outside of the 50% of our thoughts, our words, our actions that are the same. There's some comfort knowing that everything is going to be okay and everything's going to be the same. And I think the reason why most people don't change or take a risk is because they value certainty or being comfortable over what they can get, which is something new. So I've heard this before. You probably heard it as well. Most people would fight really hard to stop somebody from stealing $100 or $1,000 from them rather than taking a risk and doing something that would actually bring them $1,000 or $100,000 or whatever the amount is. So in other words, we have a fear of loss, and we'll do more so that something isn't taken away from us versus, hey, here's an opportunity. You could do something like, I don't know, walk on fire. You could break a board, or you could, well, get on a plane and fly somewhere you've never been before, right? It's new. Why do most people say no to something like that, whether it's walking on fire or breaking a board or getting on a plane and flying to Israel? Well, gosh, it's new. I've never done it before. And I've seen that not only in my own life, but also in other people's life as well. So the word new, or the letter N, stands for being uncomfortable. And I think this is what stops most people. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They want things to stay the same. And what I've learned in my 60 humble years of life is nothing stays the same. Nothing stays the same. So change is going to happen no matter what. You know, our bodies are going to change, our minds are going to change, relationships are going to change, jobs are going to change. Everything around us is changing. Our cells are changing, right? We probably don't have the same cells we had 2 years ago or a year ago or 5 years ago, all right? So everything is changing. Progress, well, that depends on us, you know. Are we going to focus on our health? Are we going to focus on relationships or our money? Are we going to focus on our career? Or are we just going to kind of like push it in the background and just let things go the way they go because we're afraid of doing something that may be uncomfortable or may be new? So we talked about the M, we talked about the I, we talked about the N, and now we get to the last letter in the word mind, M-I-N-D, mind yourself. So under diamond, we talked about direction, very male-oriented energy, going towards a direction, focused on, you know, a certain thing. But here, it's not necessarily a direction, it's a destiny. It's a destiny, seeing yourself in a different light or in a different place in your life. So I heard this the other day, which I really think is powerful, and I want to share with you. Rather than setting goals for this year, which is 2023, and saying, this is what I want to have happen this year, what if we could do this? What if we could go using our imagination into the future to December 31st, 2023. So we're using our imagination that it's New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, this December 31st. And we're going into 2024. Wow, this year went fast, didn't it? Seemed like this year just started. Now, we're looking backwards. So here we are, the last day of the year, and we're looking back to January and February. Wow, how did our life change? What did we spend our time on? Who did we spend time with? How did we use our mindset or our mentality? Did we develop new habits? Did we start hanging around different people? Did we start, using our imagination to do something new with our life? And if we did, what would those things be? So rather than kind of forcing this, imagine how you're using your imagination to look backwards. So this is powerful, I think. Imagine knowing what you want, but at the same time, using your imagination to think about your destiny. And your destiny has already happened. Like you've taken that trip, you've left that relationship, or you've gotten a new job, or you've lost the weight. It's already done. It's already finished. So what you're doing is it's called future pacing. You're in the future looking backwards on all the things that you already did. Imagine tomorrow or tonight, if you want, thinking of your new destination. Because quite frankly, if you want something to change, it's going to take you to a new place. And I'm not necessarily saying you move from Massachusetts to Ohio or Ohio to Florida or Florida to California. I'm not talking about, geographic change. I'm talking about who you will become as a different person. So a lot of times when people talk about goal settings, I want to set a goal to do this or I want to set a goal to do that. It's not so much about getting what you want as it is about becoming who you need to be to get what you want. Does that make sense? So I learned this many, many years ago. Sure, you can get the Corvette. Sure, you can get the family. Sure, you can get the career or the house or the travel or whatever it is, or the business, right? But it really has to do with how we must change, we must evolve, or we must transform so that what we say we want is in our life because of who we have become. We start thinking more positive, and then we start surrounding ourselves with people that are more positive. Or if money's an issue, instead of hanging around broke people, maybe we start hanging around people that have a little bit of income or they have cash flow. It all has to do with not what we get, I don't think. I think what it really has to do with is who we become. Because think about it, anything that we set a goal for, anything that we go after in our life, we can't take it with us. Eventually we're going to have to leave it behind. But the only thing that's going to last forever, hopefully, is who we become in the process. So what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of weeks is I'm going to be dissecting this concept of the diamond mind in detail, going through decide, what's important, aim, mind, outcome, new direction, which is the first part of the triangle, or the diamond, I should say, and then getting deeper into this understanding of mind, M-I-N-D. And then you put it together and you have diamond, mind, potential. So let me just ask you this one question as we close. And the question is this: how much should a tree grow? How much should a tree flourish? How much should a tree reach to the heavens? Probably as much as it can. As much as it can. That probably would be the answer that I would say. And I think when you think about your own life, whether it's your health or your relationships or the amount of money that you make every day, every week, every year, whether it has to do with your emotions or whether it has to do with your calling, your career, Diamond Mind may help you to reach your full potential. All righty, we'll talk to you next week. Make it a great week. Thanks so much, everybody.
You've been listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Check out Greg at gregdwyer.com. Be sure to download his ebook at gregdwyerebook.com to stay focused on what matters most to you. That's www.gregdwyerebook.com. We want to thank you for listening. Now go make a difference in your world.